Hey everybody, how are you doing? Just got this pellet stove. This is a US stove company, King. This is a model KP5522-W. A little bit frustrating. You get the instructions for this thing and it shows where the damper is and says open and closed. And that's it. No more explanation. On your control panel up here, it has a M and a T. In the manual it says control mode, manual or thermostat, and that's all it says. Very frustrating. So I wanted to kind of clear this up for a lot of people. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and turn this stove on. And it's going to be a down and dirty video. I'm not worried about making it pretty. I want to get this information out to the other people that may be getting these stoves. So this is going to come up first with the HR1. What the HR means, that's a heat rating, heat ratio, whatever, it doesn't really matter. But HR1 means that it will deliver 2.1 pounds of pellets into your burner per hour. This will go clear up to HR5, which will deliver 5 pounds of pellets per hour into your pot or burner. Now let's get to the manual mode. So if we put this, push this button right here and put it on manual mode, it will deliver, if it's set at HR5, it will deliver 5 pounds of pellets per hour into the pot. Regardless, it will basically ignore the thermostat. If we set this to T, we'll set it to thermostat by pushing this button again. When you first turn this stove on, they recommend starting it at about 1, and then we have a damper down here on the side, and they recommend having this closed for a faster ignition. So that's going to get your stove up and running. Once we get a good flame achieved there, then we want to open our damper up to match the HR setting. So if you're burning your stove at HR2, you want your damper out just a little bit. HR1 will be closed. HR5 will be your damper all the way open. The knob pushed all the way in is closed, and this knob pulled all the way out, there it is, that is open. So you're going to get more airflow with it open, less with it closed. So we're going to leave it closed here until we get a good flame going. So we're working on that here. Let's see. Okay, so we've already got a decent flame going. What we want to do is set this to thermostat. Now let me try to explain this a little bit on the thermostat. On a thermostat mode, it's going to observe what your thermostat setting is, but it will only feed to a maximum rate of whatever you have this HR setting at. So let's say we set this at HR5, and then we go to thermostat, and on HR5 our damper should be pretty much all the way open. So let's open that up. Now whatever you set your thermostat to, it's going to feed at HR5 until it reaches this temperature. Actually, at about 3 degrees before that temperature, it will drop down automatically to HR1, HR2, HR3, depending on how fast the temperature's climbing up and down. So on thermostat mode, it still observes your HR setting, your pellets per hour, but it will not exceed what that maximum you set it to is. So I recommend if you're new, maybe set this thing to a 2 or 3, set your damper accordingly, and try it there. Okay, when I'm talking about a damper, I'm not talking about any kind of damper in the stovepipe. The damper is in the stove. On a pellet stove, never ever put a damper in your flue. If you do have an existing flue, or you're tapping into a 8-inch existing or whatnot, go ahead and take that damper out, because it can cause a really intense overheat situation, and you should not have any dampers in your pipes. Another good tip on these stoves is you always want to try to start with a real clean pot. So you want to make sure you clean that out before you start it each time. Clean this every day or every 2 days. You just have to kind of use your own judgment, depends on what level you're burning on. Anyways, so once we set the desired room temperature, the stove will vary between HR1 and whatever your maximum HR setting you have it set to is. Now on 1, my damper should be almost all the way closed. Now that could vary. One way to tell that your damper is too far open is if you see sparks coming out like this, that means your damper is too far open. You should not see sparks out of your stove. So let's close this damper down since we have it set on 1, and you'll see the sparks have pretty much diminished there. Another thing, you do not want to open the door. If the door remains open for over 30 seconds while the stove is burning, it will shut down, and you have to basically close the door, restart it. There is settings where you can change what those flows are. They're called C settings. We're not going to go into that. For 90% of your needs, you're never going to need to alter the programming on that board. So anyways, again, in manual mode, it ignores the thermostat altogether and just runs at whatever the HR setting is. In thermostat mode, you set your desired room temperature. You also set your maximum HR setting is below the temperature. It's going to run at your, when it's far below the set temperature, it's going to run at your maximum setting, whatever that happens to be. As the room warms up, it'll drop down to HR1, HR2, a low burn rate. Okay, now another thing is when you shut the stove off, should you open the damper to allow for any excess smoke to come out? The answer to that is going to be no. Do not open or close the damper when you shut it off. You're just simply going to hit the power switch on the stove. It will say cool on there. It will begin its own shutdown process. Again, you do not want or need to move the damper at that point. Okay, another thing on burning and fine-tuning your damper settings. We're going to say all the way closed for 1, all the way open for 5. That's not necessarily exactly it. You want to pay attention to your flame, and I've got a little diagram here that we made. And I don't know that I can really show you this part on the video, But anyways, you want to pay attention to your flame. What you're looking for is a good, light-colored, lively flame. And actually, the flames looks pretty good in there as it's even shutting down. So, if you see a dark flame, that means it's not getting enough air. It'll be a orangey looking flame. When you've got a dark orangey flame, you're probably putting excess suet into your flue. If you've got too much air, you're going to see a smaller flame because it's being pulled through faster. You will also see sparks. If you're seeing lots of sparks, you need to shut that damper down some. Okay, and of course just right, you're going to see a nice medium colored flame to a light, really light colored yellow flame. One other thing you want to pay attention to when you do your clean out, pay attention to the color of your ashes, and you can kind of read them to see how clean your stove is burning. So if you've got a black or dark gray ash, that means you're getting an incomplete burn. You're probably seeing that orange flame. That means you're not giving it enough air, so you probably want to work on adjusting your damper out, giving it a little more air, paying attention to that flame. If your ashes are medium or light gray, that's kind of what you want. That means you got a good balanced air and fuel mix. Find that sweet spot, and it may take a while. Don't practice and figuring it out. Especially when you're using thermostat and it's ramping up and down, you kind of want to let it run for a while and then adjust it, pay attention to that flame. If you're getting sparks, close it down a little bit. If it's too narrow of a flame, shut it down a little bit, and you'll find that sweet spot. Now if you empty your ashes and they're white, like a real white, that means you're putting too much heat in, your stove's burning too hot, which can lead to other failures. And not only that, but you'll be consuming way more pellets than you need to be and shooting that heat out the chimney. Nobody wants to do that, that's for sure. I think a lot of us put these in as a cost savings measure anyways. So normally we would clean the pot out, let this cool down, get a good ash vacuum. Usually they have a steel can. The better ones will have a liner inside of them. Here, I'll pull this one apart here. So this is it right here. And if I pull this out, you'll see this inside filter here. Get untangled here. This inside filter, you can see it's perfectly clean. Wow. Yeah, I've used this. So let me show you why. Because inside of the can is a pre-filter. So the ash goes in this metal can. Yes, it should be metal here, but you should never suck up hot ashes. Always, let your stove cool before you suck the ashes up. But anyways, I'm not going to pull that out of there just because I don't want the mess all over. But anyways, get you one of these ash vacuums. Makes it really easy to clean your stove. Pull the pot out, make sure you sweep under that, and the two side plates, if your stove has ones, and sweep under that. I'm going to turn the stove on, set it to manual, so we're ignoring any thermostat settings. Set our HR, And I'm going to go ahead, and even though we're on HR3 because we're on startup, I'm going to close that damper down. And you can see we've already achieved flame. Of course, the stove is already hot. And our damper is closed. Okay, so now that we've achieved a good flame already, we're going to set this back to thermostat. I'm sorry, first we're going to set our HR level to the highest amount of pellets per hour we want to use. I'm going to set it clear down to 1. And I'm going to set my thermostat, and I want that at 69 degrees. And we're off and running. One more thing I need to do is wait a few minutes, pay attention to my flame. If it's dark orange, I want to open my fluid a little bit. I want you to see when I open this damper, you're going to see a bunch of sparks, and you're going to see a crazy flame. Get her on down here. Okay, that's with the damper open, and it's going to burn our pellets really fast. This is with our damper all the way closed, and that's getting toward a really dark flame. So when it come open just a little bit, until that flame, and I know you probably can't see these color differences on the video. So now we've got a really nice light yellow flame, and that's what we want. It's really frustrating, the manual on this. So I dug around, found this information. I couldn't find it anywhere on YouTube. Another fella had a video about his auger had sheared the cotter pin, which may be helpful to me someday, and I thank you for that video. Visit our website, 5trc.com. I'd really appreciate your subscribe support here on YouTube. I know I haven't made any videos in a long time. Been really busy, but I felt it was really important to make this video because this stove is something that you don't want to play games with. You want to make sure you kind of know what you're doing, because it does have the capacity to burn your house down or result in death if not used correctly. So I'm not an expert. I just got this stove myself. I did a lot of research, spent hours getting this research together so that I could get my own working. And I thought, wow, that's really a waste of me going through doing all this work and not sharing this with people. So I hope this helps somebody out there. I hope the information is all correct. I'm pretty sure I'm giving you good information. Double check me. If you have any comments, notes at the bottom, be sure to comment. Don't feel bad about correcting me. I appreciate any kind of constructive criticism you may want to give. So anyways, there you have it. It's the King U.S. Stove Company, made in China stove from Tractor Supply Company. We may make some more videos in the future as we find out the little niches about this stove. So thank you. Smash that subscribe button for me.